Welcome to the second season of the Nepos Lightning Talks. The first season is over, and in the season 1 playlist we learned that we enjoyed it very much to have these talks and to share the ideas we have and that are in our brains while we are working on this great product, a tablet for the elderly, so everyone can participate in the digital world. And as we are all playful individuals, we decided to share some thoughts and some ideas to each other. And today it's Bob. In season 2 we have new people, and I'm very happy to listen to your talk about how we can survive as a team. And Bob is supporting us in the daily business. And beside that, he plays in a famous German band, and we are very happy to get this new influence into our work, because basically as a startup we pretend to also be a band and rock our product. And now I stop all the introduction and over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming and listening. Yeah, like Paul mentioned, I work for Nepos now since 2016, but always only part-time, because, like you mentioned, mainly I am part of the band Mia, and I play in that band for over 20 years now. Like you can see, this is me in 1997, and yeah, it's quite a long time, for over 20 years now. And beside the fact that it's fun to play in a band, it's always challenging, and it could not be taken for granted that you can survive in such a group for such a long time. You have to do something for that, and that's why I choose my main topic, surviving as a team. And this is a huge topic, so I decided for today that I start with one part of it, and this is decision-making progress. So how make decisions in a democratic group, because we as a band, we are democratic, so every decision we make, we all try to give our best and to decide as a group. And before getting deep in that topic, I want to take you with me to a point in 2004. I saw a documentary from another famous band which really influenced me for a long time. It's the documentary Some Kind of Monster of the band Metallica. So to make it clear, I have nothing to do with metal music and also with this band, but it was a really famous documentary. Here it's called like one of the most revelatory rock portraits ever made. So I agree with that, and why it was so influencing for me. So this band, when they worked on their 9th studio album, and at this point they sold over 19 millions of records, but they were at the point shortly before they're breaking up, because they lost their last bass player. Their first bass player, he died. Then they had a second one. They toured a lot of them with him, but there were always problems. And of course, it's a metal band. All the problems mainly come from alcoholism, taking drugs and stuff like that. But it's also because they missed to communicate with each other. So when I saw this documentary, so after I saw this documentary and we were going on with our own band, at certain points I always remembered, hey, it's like Metallica when I saw this documentary. So, and it's so impressive because imagine, it's about communication, and the management of the band decided to involve he self-styled a performance enhancement coach. A guy, he worked with other bands and baseball teams and stuff like that. Always, if there's a situation with big egos and they want to act as one team, and so impressive for me is that to see this large metal band, and these are really badass dudes, and they were so open-minded to let another person in and try out to communicate with each other. And I mentioned that because for me it's the most important thing. If you stop to communicate, then you will die in the end. So and when you see this documentary, you can see how difficult it is to be so open-minded and to find yourself and learn again to communicate with each other. So it always looked in the beginning like this. They didn't know how to handle the situation, and sometimes communication looks like this, that they're screaming at each other. And but Phil Towle, the dude here, is always there and tries to handle the situation, to calm down everyone. And afterwards they said it helped that they survived. They would have broken up if this guy wasn't there to help them out. So the whole process with them, it took 3 years to record this album. There was a rehab in between and a lot of stuff. But they made it, and that's a good example for me, and always to remember, if they managed it, everyone can manage it, because we are all the people around me, and we as a team here in Nepos, and me and my band, we're so lovely in combination with these guys. So, but let's summarize. Communication, it takes time, and there's so much situations when I think, why are we discussing this topic again and again? It takes so much time, and time is money, but I think there's no shortcut. It always helps to communicate and always worth it. So now to my special theme for today. I created 5 steps to a successful decision-making process, and it's a little bit different to a situation like in this company, because here it's clear there's a boss and there are employees, and we interact as a team, but it's always helpful that there's one guy who makes the final decision. In the band, it's a little bit different because it's democratic and everyone has the same voice, and we try to make all decisions together. And at this point, I have to mention everything I say and is only lessons I learned, and it's nothing which is scientifically proven or something like that. I never checked it out. I just try to write down my learned processes and how we try to handle it. So I created these 5 steps in the process when we make a decision. So the first one is to make clear what is the goal, why we need a decision, for what we need this decision. So what is the clear goal, to define it, and then we go further with in the second step we think, okay, before we make these decisions, how many alternatives are there which leads to the goal. So just to, not in the first step to think about, okay, when we do this, then we have to. No, just separate in the first step. Okay, we have this path, and now in the next step, we play through the scenarios of every part. And it contains, because we are humans, we always think in first step, what is the worst case scenario. So if we decide for that point, so what is the risk, and what can happen if we decide for that or for that path. And also, when we do it like this, how can we make sure that the goal is achieved? Is it how much time does it takes, and do we need help with that? Can we do it on our own, and stuff like that? And in the next step, I will be more concrete. Who has which voting right? So I said we are a democratic group, so basically everyone has the same voting right. But it makes sense, if you want to make decisions, to rethink, is it in every decision, is it really useful that we have the same voting right? Or is it sometimes better that one guy says, okay, it don't affect me so much, I'm out of it, do you take the decision? So it makes it a little bit more easier. And the final step is to make a decision. And so I called it 5 steps, but it's important, there's a secret hidden 6th step. After you made a decision, I would suggest that you always have to go for the decision. If you made the decision, go for the decision, and mind the look back, and not always to think, what if we had decided the other way? Wouldn't it be better? And especially if afterwards someone says, I hate to say, I told you so, that it's not useful. That's not good for the atmosphere for the group. You can rethink your decision the next time you have to make a decision, and it's related to the first one. Then you can rethink, okay, last time we did it like that, and what are our experiences with that? And you can rethink in the next decision part, but not after making a decision. Then you have to go for it. So, helpful methods. Back to the documentary of Metallica, there was a situation in this documentary when they invited the new bass player, the search for a new bass player, and they found one. And in my memories, because when we saw this documentary, there was one fact with this 100 points method we took out of the documentary and tried ourselves. When I now preparing this talk, I saw the documentary again and realized there was no situation and no 100 points method. It was such a short thing, but I don't know. When we saw it the years before, in 2004, we thought it was meant like this, but it wasn't. Now we created our own method, and this is the 100 points method. The goal is to gain a more clear overview about the proportional distribution of the voting. So it is, I have an example for a color decision. So we have 4 alternatives for a color, for whatever, and instead of asking 4 people, okay, which color would you prefer, which do we take, then the first one says, yeah, I want to go red, and the other one blue, and there were 2 people for blue and only 1 for red and 1 for green. Then it's the decision, okay, we go for blue because there were 2 for it. But with the 100 points method, you can have a better overview how close this decision was, or is it the best decision. So every decision maker gets 100 points, and everyone has the free decision how these points are distributed on the different alternatives, and the addition of the points in the end show the final distribution. Afterwards, you have the possibility to eliminate an alternative and start again with only 2 of the things. So to have this example, we have these 4 guys here, and the first one said, okay, I'm quite sure I like blue the most, but it's close because I also like purple. And the other one says, okay, I really like red, blue I like most, and like you see, and it's going on. And in the end, you can see the winner is blue, but if we would have checked out only if there's no points, only a decision, so we would have the first one blue, the other one also blue, then red, and the next one for purple. It would have been the decision for blue, but now it's more concrete that there are really 2 alternatives which are really close, and it's kind of abstract in this example, but we had so many situations where it's really helpful to have this view and to discuss again about why is that distribution like that, why more that and less that. Yeah, I can say so. And there's another helpful method is, like I said before, to minimize the number of decision makers. So you can ask yourself, will the decision affect me? Is it useful that I try to make a decision? Do I have the right skills or know-how, or are the other parts of the group more is it useful that only these 2 guys decide because they know much more about the theme and the topic? And yeah, like the last one, am I really interested in the topic, or is it helpful to me? Oh, I don't want to make this decision. Do you make it? And another method is, I call it the head of department method. I really like this one because for us in a band, everyone has his own kind of department. I'm more into organization stuff. Our guitar player is more into the design stuff, and our lead singer and our drum player is more into words and creative wording stuff. So when we have to decide for a design, for any design aspect, I really like it to get through all these parts of the decision making, so to discuss everything in a team, but the final decision is only made by the head of this department. In this case, for a design thing, our guitar player, because he is also the one who implements the decision. So he has to handle with it, and it's not nice if he is too into red. I want to make it red, and all the others together decided to make it blue. Then it's not the best scenario for him to be creative and do the best he can. So I like to discuss everything. It's like here in this company, we just discuss everything in a group, and then we decide who's making the final decision. So head of department method. And with the 100-point method, there's another good thing, and that's what they did in this documentary. Because when the new bass player came, the lawyer from the band, he said, okay, you in this band, all the guys want that you can make decisions with them, but you don't have the same decision right as all the others. And they did it with a percentage, that he has a less percentage in his votes. But with the 100 points method, you can do exactly that. If for example, there's a new member, you can say, okay, let's make a decision together, but you have only 50 points to vote and to distribute on the alternatives. And we do it with our management, for example. So yeah, and it's a good way. It helped us to try new things, but to make clear decisions and to ask ourselves, okay, how is the final decision created, and how close it was, or how exact it was. Because to be democratic is a good thing, but not in every part and not for every decision. So it's worth it to rethink what's the best method we are using to make a decision, and not to do any decision the same way. So that's the thing I wanted to bring you close, how things can change, and how to rethink things which are so usual in our daily lives, because we all have to make decisions every day. Some are bigger and some are minor, but it's an ongoing process. And I really like the idea that there are alternatives in making a decision, and to try out things like in the startup scene, everyone is trying out new methods and helpful, is it Scrum or Kanban or stuff like that. Bands are more like, hey, we did it like that for 20 years, so why change anything? Yeah, we need to change sometimes things to survive. Why? Because otherwise we're stuck, and it's close to breaking up. So that's why I really love to be part of this company and to learn how fast things can be invented in such a group, and to try out new things, because there's always something you can get out of this trying out. Yeah, that's for me in this part. Thanks for listening.
Super cool. Very interesting.
Yeah. I like to. We had a question.
Yeah, tell us about the worst fight of your band.
The worst fight? Yeah, so because of you're not so long in Germany, that's why you don't know, but I think the worst fight and the biggest decision we made was will Needs be part, our lead singer, part of the TV show, I forgot the name, Deutschland sucht den Superstar, DSDS. And yeah, it's like American Idol, it's a German Idol thing. And and that was a kind of head of department decision, because it was clear we discussed everything, but in the end it was clear no one of the boys wanted to do that, but she wanted to do that, and she's the one who's in the show. And so we said, you can make it if you want, but you have to know we don't like the decision. So, and that was okay. So, and also afterwards, no one could say, was it good or bad or something like that. It's more a feeling afterwards. But it was a hard decision. We discussed 2 nights in a hotel room, and not an easy decision to make that.
She decided to not to do.
No, she did it.
She did it? Oh.
Yeah. And because she wanted to try out new things, and we totally understand this fact. Yeah.
And how is she reacting, or how does she think nowadays about this decision?
It's hard to really get to know, but she was always like, I want to try out things. Afterwards I can say, would I do it again or not? But I know, with all the knowing from now, it was not just fun to be in that show for her, but I'm sure she would decide the same way when she's back on the same point. So if now there's a decision to make something like that, you have all the experience and could decide in a different way. But if you never tried out, we always tried out things, and I think it was good for the band, although not every decision was the best.
Okay. And how do you handle information? Because when you need to make a decision, it's very important that you have all the related information.
Yeah.
So how is that handled in the band?
Yeah, it's always good if so usually I'm the one who is preparing this decision-making process, and to get all the informations we know, or to postpone a decision, because we need to know that or that fact. So we're talking about it, and so okay, for the decision you want to know this special part. Then we have to ask the booking company or someone to get these informations, and then we start the decision-making process again. So it's really important to have as much information as possible.
And when you are in contact with the booking agency, for example, do your band members have access to this information, or are you talking with them, and when you get the deal or the right information, then you share it, or is it transparent from the beginning on?
No, it's not transparent from the beginning on. So it's like the daily business. It's a kind of shortcut. Okay, I handle all the previous situations and the talkings, and mostly, so all these 5 steps in the decision-making process, I always do it also on my own, not only for the decisions we make in a group, or also for my own standing. It's okay, which alternatives, what would it how many paths and what are the facts who affect a decision. And then I present it to the band. And mostly I give an advice. I would go for that way because of. And and then we're talking about, and it's equal how much I thought before about this topic. Every time it's good to talk again with all the people, because sometimes there's a new path. I wouldn't imagine that it's also possible about this way, and usually you need then more information. Okay, when we do so, then we need to, but sometimes it's the best way, and I never thought about in the beginning. So it takes time, and sometimes it could have been much faster in the same decision, but you don't know before. So that's why we decided every time we sit there and think, oh no, why this talking? Yeah, it's worth it. In the end, it's worth it.
And you are using also these methods while are you creating music?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, not the whole song, but yeah. I think when you're creating some parts and there's a new part which you have created, or the singer or the guitarist or whoever, you present it, say, and then you're using this method, or is it? Yeah,
it's something. This is something for our next talk. So how we handle this in a creative process. And it's not exactly, we never did this 100 points method in a creative way, but the 5 steps of the decision making process, it's kind of the same, and it's a lot of theoretical talking about, I want to play this riff because it's modern, it's more like this, and it gets attributes, and you have to discuss this attributes, and mostly it's all the discussion take place before you ever tried it out, and then it's always the fight and combination. Yeah, do we want to talk another hour of this riff? Or do we want to try out and hear and feel I like it or not? So, and I think that it's hard to make a rule for creative processes, because it has always something to do with your own taste, and this is. I always say to my band members when they're talking. You can't change my taste through words. It's impossible. So when I listen to music, I don't read this Anleitung. I just listen and feel something, or even not.
Cool. Yeah, very interesting. Thanks a lot for sharing.
Thank you.